So we do still have some people coming in, but it is 11 o'clock, so we are going to get started. So thank you all for being here with us today. So grateful that you've taken this time to join in such unprecedented times is when we most need community, insight, and gathering. So today we are going to be exploring what noetic wisdom is and what it means for ourselves at this time, both individually and collectively. So my name is Andrea, and I'm going to be your host along with Dominic, who was just announcing everyone's names and where we're coming from in this truly global gathering. And he can help you with any technical difficulties you're having as well. And we're really blessed to be joined by some of our leadership here at IONS, who will be introducing shortly to give their perspective. And then we will be have a chance to break out into small breakout groups, so you all can connect with each other and share what's emerging for you. And then we'll have time once again in the big group to share. So this will be a very interactive group. You can participate at any time via the chat, which many of you have already found and put in where you're calling from. So feel free to continue adding where you're coming in from and looking at the other people who are on the screen here with us today. And then, as mentioned, we'll let you know how to raise your Zoom hand and how to actually participate with audio and video. One more thing on the Zoom platform that I want to let you know before we dive in is at the top right of your screen, you'll see a little button that says either speaker view or gallery view. And if you're on your phone, it will just be an icon. It won't say the word. So you can toggle back and forth between those to either just see who's talking, taking up the full screen, or you can see all of the other amazing, almost 300 people who are on this call with us today. So that's a choice. And maybe just so we can practice, we can toggle to gallery view so that we can see everyone. And just as if we were in a room all together, you can scroll through, you can wave and make eye contact with these other humans who are here on the call and who have joined together in this moment. So just taking a moment to see the other beautiful humans in this community, in this Noetic community that are here with us today in this virtual room. Great, so go ahead and choose whatever view works best for you for the talk, and here we go. So before we begin, just inviting us into a nice deep breath all together, a nice collective breath, so breathing in and maybe sighing out, letting go of anything that's not needed for this moment and for this gathering together. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're about to hear from some of our leadership team here at IONS, and then we'll get a chance to do a guided meditation together before we break out into small groups. Our overall exploration today is about how we can experience and tap into our own inner knowing. Noetic, meaning inner knowing or inner wisdom, especially in times of uncertainty and challenge. And then we will get a chance to harvest the collective intelligence from this call. So to give a little more context on ION's guiding hypothesis and our noetic capabilities, I'm going to pass it to Kirsten Sjoquist, who is the Director of Experience. And then we'll get to hear from our CEO and a couple of our board members. So Kirsten, if you can start it off, I'll pass it to you.
That would be great. Thank you, Andrea. Dominic, can you please give me screen sharing capabilities so that I can share my slides with everyone? Welcome, everyone. It is so nice to see you here today, literally from all over the globe. People are continuing to join us, and I'm just so honored and happy to share this time with you. So thank you for being here. You should be able to see my screen now. And essentially, I just want to provide a little context for what we're doing today. So our work at IONS is focused not only by our mission to reveal the interconnected nature of reality through scientific research and personal discovery, but also by our guiding hypothesis, which states everything is interconnected. By embodying an awareness of this interconnection, we can tap into energy and information not limited by space and time, and profoundly amplify transformation, innovation, and well-being. So a question one might ask is, why focus on interconnection? Why attempt to tap into energy and information beyond space and time? Can't we foster transformation and innovation and well-being without an awareness of these things? And the short answer is, of course we can. Logic and reason and other common approaches to problem solving are invaluable tools. And we likely would not have made most of our human achievements without them. And there are those who would have us believe that logic and reason are all we need to solve the world's problems. Let me see if I can get my screen to go to the next slide here. There we go. To limit ourselves is a little bit like using only half our bodies. So while we can, of course, move from place to place with a single leg, we can carry things with a single arm, we can see with a single eye. But if we take the full body into account, 2 legs allows us to move more quickly. 2 arms allow us to both carry and reach for something. 2 eyes offer us depth perception. This is, of course, an imperfect example. I am not in any way trying to imply that by having a single arm or leg or eye, it makes any of us a lesser person. And in fact, people who fall into one or more of these categories may actually be more resourceful, since being outside the norm often requires unique and special strategies for navigating life. And that really is the point. Using our noetic capabilities, tapping into that deep interconnection is outside the norm. At least the norm of our current dominant culture, though we are working very hard to remedy that. By employing our noetic capacities, by accessing information and energy from the greater interconnected reality, we have access to innovative solutions and ways of being that are not simply available to us when we use a limited set of tools. Realizing that you have this access is a bit like becoming aware that you have wings in addition to your legs and arms and eyes. So not only can you walk and skip and dance and run, you can also fly. And this noetic flight gives you whole new perspectives, new dimensions that provide more information, more energetic fodder for the creative explorations so called for in these times. So that is why we focus on the nature of interconnection. That is why we look for ways to tap into this greater reality. We're facing issues that we've never before encountered and of a magnitude that is impossible to ignore. And noetic approaches allow us to use our metaphorical wings and soar to new perspectives and new answers, creating an acceleration of truly meaningful solutions. So I will stop sharing my screen. That is just an overview again to provide us with a little bit of context. Andrea also asked me to check in just briefly on some of my own noetic practices and noetic tools. And I will say that one of the largest is to remind myself that I am not in this alone. Not only do I have access to all of you beautiful people and the people on this planet, but that deeper interconnected whole is providing me with support and sustenance. And so one of my main practices is to open each day with gratitude for that interconnected whole and for the wisdom available to me through that. And I try to return to that periodically throughout the day. I also try to stay open to the 4 I's: intuition, impulse, insight, and inspiration. I try to keep an open channel to allow these things to sort of bubble up spontaneously. I find that things most often drop in when I'm doing some sort of open-ended, unconstructed time, like when I'm walking my dog. So I find it super important to not have every single moment of my day scheduled. My colleagues can attest to the idea or the notion that it also happens when I'm blathering. Sometimes we'll be in meetings together and I will just be verbally churning over the issue that we're working with, and all of a sudden something will fly out of my mouth that I didn't consciously think about, but it sort of focuses us or has, for me, one of the elements of the answer that we're seeking. And of course, I also actively request information and energy. So one of my favorite tools to use for that are various inspirational card decks. I have gratitude cards and blessing cards, affirmation cards, tarot cards, all of which I find to be really useful in offering information and also helping with that discernment process of really clarifying the information as it arises, and how I choose to move forward with that. So that's a little bit about what I do, and I'm excited to hear what everybody else is up to as well. So I will turn it back to Andrea. Thanks, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kirsten, both for just framing the greater hypothesis, noetic hypothesis, and giving us some ways and tools that you're using, and we'll be exploring what's best for right now for us all to tune into information and energy, maybe beyond our five senses, that can bring insight and inspiration. So thank you, Kirsten. And I would love to pass it to our CEO, Claire LaChance, now to give us a little more insight into the importance of noetic sciences at this time. So go ahead, Claire.
Oh gosh. Thanks, Andrea, and thank you, Kirsten, for that fabulous overview. There's never blathering. It's not blathering. It's important for us to verbalize in times like this. So I'm just very grateful for all of you for joining us today. And that really is, I was thinking about this yesterday, that feeling of gratitude for our IONS community. We have 1,100 people signed up for today, 1,100. And when Dominic, and thank you, Dominic, for the great setup, was reading some of the countries and states where people are from, it's just very moving to us. And this is what we need. Our IONS team is working full bore right now. Nothing is slowing us down. We're working virtually. And as Kirsten read, our mission, which is about revealing the interconnected nature of reality through scientific exploration and personal discovery, both those prongs of our noetic handshake, the research and the experiential programs, are continuing. It's just we're doing it virtually. Our retreat center, in terms of in-person programs, unfortunately has had to shut down temporarily, but our core work in science and in experiential is moving ahead. So knowing you're there with us and knowing that we can come together in community right now is so important. And that's just this feeling that we're not in this alone. We are interconnected. I'm having so much fun scrolling through the screen right now and seeing many of you that I know personally. I'm seeing names that I recognize, and I'm seeing lots of new friends. I'm even seeing my mother in Maine. So that's kind of a surprise and fun. So I wanted to say on behalf of IONS leadership that, noetic sciences, I just so firmly believe a noetic approach. So those of us who hold at least some belief in these in noetic sciences, or have a spiritual practice, or a combination of it all, are definitely more resilient in these times. Kirsten used the word resourceful, and it's interesting because when she said resourceful, I said much of my meditation over the weekend was around resilience. And resourcefulness is part of resilience. But how do we truly go into the space of our inner knowing, our felt sense of interconnection with others to help us through a time like this? And I wanted to share with you four aspects that are striking me right now, very practically speaking. In my role as the CEO of IONS, I have to have a foot in both worlds. I have to be practically running the organization, keeping things moving full speed during this crisis, and I have to be doing my own personal practice, which is how I try to run my life as the ION CEO, is my own spiritual noetic practice and the practicalities of management. And there's no better time than now to have to do that. So with that in mind, I said, well, what are four things I can share with you right now that are very real? We have an IONS member donor who might be on right now, Josephine Lang, who loves to say to me, Claire, you have to have both feet on the floor in order to reach for the stars. And she does the full stretch. Well, that's what we're doing right now, having both feet on the ground and reaching for the stars in our work. So the four pieces I want to share with you that's more personal is, one is about allowing the stillness, allowing this time of stillness. You might still be busy with your work and other family life, but in the stillness is where we find our inner voice. And to allow for that in this time. And we all know it's hard in normal life. We're racing around all the time. We barely have weekends. We barely have evenings. Is there something magical in this for us to better hear our inner voice? So that's the first one. The second one is that I would say now more than ever, look for the synchronicities and the surprises. I had one happen this weekend. It was really quite something. I want to just share it because it's a concrete example. I had to order extra firewood here at my house in Northern California on the coast. And the man who I was ordering the firewood from started talking to me on the end of the line about interconnectedness and everything that sounded like IONS, but had no idea I was the CEO of IONS. So I kind of mentioned, do you know about Institute of Noetic Sciences? Oh yeah. Well, it turns out he's actually just a wonderful, he actually has his own inner resources practice and a retreat center and happens to do the firewood to make extra money. Long story short, he and I ended up talking last night for about 45 minutes, 6 feet apart, by the way. We were still 6 feet apart, about his perspectives. And here he was, his meditation, his work in the world is to bring the firewood to people. But in that very basic act of ordering the firewood, I had this incredibly inspiring conversation that reinforced our whole work at IONS. It was very, very moving. The third aspect I want to share with you is about getting out of our bubbles. This is an expression actually Robert from last night shared with me. This fact that we can live day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year with our certain kind of our circle of family and friends and our routines. And you could go on, it has its own momentum. And if you don't ever stop it, you could just live the rest of your life with that very small circle. And even for some of us, it might be a big circle, but it's still a limited circle. So how do we remind ourselves that right now our relationship with each other is our family? We are interconnected over the ether right now through this virtual contact, but way more concretely than that, as we know through those of us who love to talk about field theory, the interconnected energy amongst us all. So getting out of our bubbles and reminding ourselves of that. And our fourth one, which is one I'm trying to take a lot of joy from right now, is what's the call to action from this? So this is what I love to call the turning lemons into lemonade. What concretely comes from this experience? Some of us use the expression silver linings. I've been saying a lot about turning lemons into lemonade. We're going to have our board chair and board vice chair join us in a minute here. And then we had to do our board meeting virtually a week ago Friday, and we talked a lot about that. And it's not to be tongue in cheek. It's not to make light of this. It's to say, okay, what positive can come from this? What changes? Well, I can tell you one is, as for IONS, just in our limited set of IONS, is to say, we're getting really good at working virtually. And that's very important for changing times. We've been hit by the fires. We've been hit by smoke emergencies. We've been hit by PG&E power outages. And now we have this. Well, guess what? The IONS team is actually now pretty nimble at working virtually. But even to me, more exciting is that we can announce a global gathering like this just a few days ago and have 1,100 people sign up. It's awesome. So I think, and what I hope comes up in the conversations when we break into small groups are, what are some of your insights? What's coming from this that not only changes your life, but others? How can we make the most of the circumstance? So we are going to go into more details about specific topics of what this crisis means for noetic sciences and ourselves through our Connections Live series, which begins on Friday. I'm going to be personally moderating those for the next several Fridays with guest presenters this week. So this Friday, at this exact same time, we're going to be focused on health and well-being with two members of our science team, Garrett Yao and Nina Fry, and with our IONS research fellow, Mike Sapiro. And that's just part of our gift to the world right now. And with that, before I introduce Claudia, I just want to thank all of you again for being part of this. I want to thank you those of you who are members and donors, because oh my gosh, do we need you now more than ever. We are impacted by this crisis. We are surging forward, but we need that support, and I thank you for that very much. And I just encourage you to keep being part of these conversations. It's really, this is one of the most inspiring aspects of what's emerging right now. So with that, I am going to happily introduce our wonderful board chair, Claudia Wells, who I could do a very long introduction of, but that's not the point of today. But I do want to say, Claudia is exemplary of board leadership, servant leadership, brings her deep sense of ION's mission and vision to her work every day as our board chair. And I'm honored to serve with her in leading the organization. So Andrea, I'll turn it over to you to bring on Claudia.
All right, looks like you're on, Claudia. Go ahead.
Thank you, Andrea. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. So much deep gratitude for you, Claire, for everything that you're holding. Special hello to Claire's mom. If I understood correctly, she's on the line. And I want to start by just sending so much compassion and appreciation for everyone on the call. I know we're all facing this together, and it's affecting us to various degrees. To whatever extent you are personally being affected by what we're going through, I just wanted to share all of our compassion before I talk about my approach to this, my noetic practice. And I think, well, I have been asked to bridge it to our founder's experience, why IONS exists. Many of you probably know that our founder was Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and the 6th man to walk on the moon. And when Edgar, Captain Edgar Mitchell, was in his space capsule after his moonwalk, viewing Earth from the vantage point of the stars, he had a direct experience of unity, of the oneness of all life, that he called an epiphany. And in this epiphany, he directly perceived the universe as an intelligent, loving, harmoniously coherent whole. And with that came an expanded perception of himself and of humanity and of humanity's potential. He even saw that it was critical that we change our beliefs about the limits of our capacities as human beings, not only to realize our potential individually, but also as a species, and even more fundamentally, to ensure our collective survival. So when he returned to Earth, he founded IONS to help change the stories we tell ourselves through science about who we are, what we're capable of, and how we relate to this physical world that we're in. And for those reasons, it really feels like IONS was created for this time, to help us navigate these crises, these what I consider evolutionary drivers for our species. And in my conversations with Edgar, we'd often talk about love as the organizing principle of the universe. That surprises some people because obviously he was very trained in the standard materialist worldview. But we talked about love as the organizing principle of the universe, and he called it agape love, and I called it unconditional love. And I've heard other people call it capital L love. But they're referring to these higher spectrum frequencies of love and compassion that are based on a deep appreciation of our interconnectedness. So my practice is what's called a heart coherent meditation. And it's based on both the science of the heart and wisdom traditions that say that to heal the world, we first need to heal ourselves. The HeartMath Institute in particular has done a lot of original science demonstrating that our heart signals naturally become more coherent or more organized when we're experiencing love or gratitude or joy, as Claire referred to, and other regenerative emotions. And this orchestrates an energetic coherence in the body. It's an organizing principle for the whole body through resonance, in the same way that it orchestrates greater coherence in our collective field because of our energetic interconnectedness, whether through quantum entanglement or electromagnetic fields, whatever invisible ways our hearts are connected. And this we know personally from our own noetic experiences. And because of this, we can actually resource ourselves from that infinite field and amplify it. One of our greatest opportunities now, I believe, is to realize how much agency we actually have in this. So especially when we're physically separated, I think it's important to realize that more fundamental than physical acts of love or thoughts of love is the heart's capacity to generate the frequency of the kind of love that can create coherence out of chaos, that can move the world even while much of the world's not moving, with growing numbers of us in self-isolation. I always quote the famous physicist Ilya Prigogine because he showed that when a complex system is far from equilibrium, as we are now, really the whole world, small islands of coherence can shift the entire system to a higher order. And that's as true for our own human system as it is for the planet. So that is my practice. And I'm so grateful to be with all of you and sharing this moment of deep, heart-centered sharing. So my best to everyone. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Claudia, for that heart share, and also bringing it back to Edgar and the epiphany that began this exploration and really called many of us to this work. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And we have one more share before we're going to explore as a group together. So I'm really delighted that Azim Kamisa, who is the vice chair of the IONS Board of Directors, is also with us here today. So Azim, I'll pass it on to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Kirsten. And thanks for the 4 eyes. And pleasure to be with you. I'm very grateful to be part of IONS. It's an honor for me to serve as the vice chair. It is also a very foundational group for me because we get a lot of support from our board and our staff and our supporters. So the entire IONS community is very, very meaningful, especially in difficult times like this. And in my own practice is I'm a meditator. I have over 50 years in meditation, teach meditation, and my current practice is 2 hours a day. And 2 different times a day I meditate and do different things. And you can see that from my website if you're interested. I've done meditation as a preamble of my practice. But essentially, I think you heard this both from Kirsten, Claire, and Claudia, is that in life you're going to get problems your intellect will not solve. And even though you might have a double PhD in life, you're going to get problems your heart's not going to be able to heal. But by the same token, I truly believe that there are no problems that we as humans get that our spirit cannot solve or heal. And 2 hours a day, I connect with my spirit through the practice of meditation and understanding that there are inspirations and wisdom that resides within all of us. And one of the things that has come to me since this nasty bug hit our planet is not to lose hope. I believe there is a divine order to the universe. I know some people are calling this an act of God. I think it's more like an act of man. God is love, and I think Claudia spoke very eloquently on love, and I do believe that that love is going to continue and that we must not lose hope. America epitomizes hope, and I truly believe when you live in hope, you have something to look forward to. I know this will pass, and I do have faith that the universe is working with us to help us get through this. I also believe a lot of good might come out of this bug. I think that China is finally seeing blue skies. We're spending more time with our families, not working from home or not spending 2 hours a day. Some of the people that did commute, and we're being more productive. We're spending more time with family. We're spending more time with us, and I think that that as we come through this, that we will recognize that we are here to support each other in service. It's a great quote from an Indian philosopher, Rabindranath Tagore. Some of you might be familiar with his work, and he said, I dreamt life was joy. I woke up and I found that life was service. Behold, I acted, and service is joy. So I think part of the ION's mission here, and Claire talked about it, is to provide this service, to provide hope, to provide inspiration, and to continue working in the noetic part of our lives. Because that inner knowing that we all have, that we can all connect, is about spiritual resiliency. And what does that really mean? Is you want to have a healthy lifestyle, which means a good diet, which means rest and sleep are very important. I think a lot of us are sleep deprived. It means to be in meditation, in prayer. And I truly believe that collective prayer is very powerful. I believe all prayers are answered. And I think that we as an IONS community need to be collectively together, to be collective in prayer, and to know that by creating a healthy lifestyle, we need to enhance both our immune system, but also our spiritual resiliency. So I want to encourage everybody on this with us today to continue in collective prayer, to continue working on both the immune system and enhance it, and also to continue building on your spiritual resiliency, and mostly to stay hopeful. I think hope is the one thing that keeps us all positive, keeps us looking forward to having something in the future, which I know that this too will pass. All of you are in my heart, all of you are in my thoughts, and all of you are in my daily meditations and prayers. And I'll hand it back to Andrea.
Amazing. Thank you, Azim, for sharing your wisdom and around collective intention or collective prayer, similar to what Claudia was sharing around coherent, small islands of coherence. So I'm really touched. Thank you, everyone, for your perspective. And we're now going to get a chance to go within and do a short guided meditation just to see what is settling for you and how we can each specifically tune into our noetic wisdom and our inner guidance, because it's different. We call it our Noetic signature, a certain way that we each might tune in to the guidance and wisdom that's coming to us, especially now in times of uncertainty or challenge. So, so I invite you all to find a comfortable seat. And Dominic, if you want to play some background. Oh, actually, we're not going to play the music because that messes with the audio. So go ahead and find your feet on the earth and your spine as straight as feels comfortable. And just take a few deep breaths into your belly and releasing fully. And if you haven't already done so, just gently lowering or closing the eyes. And just allowing for some moments to simply track the breath as it moves in and out of your belly. Letting any thoughts or emotions or sensations simply pass by as you observe them, like a cloud passing through an open sky. Noticing the sky is like an open field of awareness. And as you continue to keep with your attention with your flow of breath, we're going to ask ourselves a few questions and just notice what arises for you, what insights, images, or intuitions arise. So first, how do I experience my inner knowing? When an insight comes, what do I experience? Do I hear something, sense it? Where do I feel it in my body? This may just happen automatically for us, but we're just taking a moment to pause and say, right, where do I get my inner knowing and my guidance from? It may be helpful to think of a time in the past where your insight or intuition or impulse was so clear. Maybe just replay that and notice how you specifically receive that insight. And what is the difference of this kind of knowing, this noetic insight, compared to the regular logical mind? Just taking a few more moments to explore that question. See what arises for you now. And continuing to observe the flow of breath. And the next question to ask ourselves is, how do I tap into my inner knowing? So are there certain practices, places, or ways of being that allow me to more easily tap into the noetic field. So again, just taking a moment to see what arises for you as far as practices and ways of being, which you feel most connected. And again, returning attention to breath. Final question for us to contemplate is, what do I need to know right now? What practices are most helpful for me as we navigate this global situation? And again, allow for information, images, or insights of what's most important right in this time for you specifically. What do you need to know right now? And once again, returning to breath, awareness of your breath. And while we're in this coherent state, let us send intention. This could be for ourselves, for our family, for the larger global community, whatever prayer or intention you may have for healing, for coherence, for peace. Let's amplify our collective intention together for a moment. And then taking maybe the deepest breath you've taken all day, way down into the belly. Fully releasing. And you can gently start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Just gently open your eyes on your own timing. And we love to take a moment here to write down whatever it was that you captured in your meditation. So you'll have just 2 minutes, and you can chat into the chat box if you'd like to share, or you can just journal it, just any images, insights about how you specifically tap into the noetic field, and anything that you need to know right now. We'll play some music and we'll have just a couple minutes to capture any insights. Again, you can feel free to also chat in the chat box if you'd like others to see your insights before we go into our small groups. So really beautiful to see the insights that are already flowing in through the chat box. And we are going to get a chance now to connect with one another. So you'll be put into breakout groups of about 5 to 6 people. I know there's some people on the phones, there's many people on videos. So Dominic right now is putting us into these groups. Once you get into the group, you can unmute yourself. And let me share. So during our time, we'll get to share anything that, just present my screen here, that came up for you either while any of our leadership was speaking, or anything in the meditation about how you personally experience your inner knowing, your noetic signature. If you had any insights on practices, places, or ways of being that help you tune into the noetic field. And anything you want to share with your group about what you find is most helpful in navigating the current global situation. And one reason that we connect with each other is we truly share the wisdom. This call was called Harvesting Noetic Wisdom, because as we share, it really helps us all. So, so Dominic, if you can go ahead and break everyone out, we'll have a little less, we'll have about 20 minutes in your groups, so make sure everyone gets to share. We'll send out little prompts to you about when your time is over, and then we'll be able to come back to the whole group and you can share with our larger collective about what you're learning or what arose within your conversation. Great. So we are all on mute currently, and when you get into your small groups, you can unmute. So Dominic, go ahead and break everyone out into the groups.
Great, welcome back everyone.
Thank you.
We're waiting on just a few more groups and then we will get started, and there they are. Perfect. Welcome back everybody.
All right, so I'm seeing some beautiful smiling faces after coming back from that connection with others, and we have just 10 minutes left of our time together. So we would love to continue hearing what is arising for you, what insights and wisdom do you have to share with the community out of your conversation, out of this call. So 2 ways to do that. Again, you can chat in the chat box as we've been using, or you can raise your Zoom hand. So I'm going to pass it to Dominic, who's going to explain not your physical hand, but your Zoom hand. That way we don't have a bunch of people talking at once and we can call on you. So go ahead, Dom.
Thank you, Andrea. Perfect, great. So if you would like to make a comment or ask a question during the segment, we ask that you raise your Zoom hand so that we know that you're interested. And this also allows us to see how many people are in the queue and the order in which they raise their hand. So I'm going to share my slide here to illustrate this process. There we are. Great. So since I'm sharing my slides, you won't be able to actually do this until we're out of screen share mode in just a minute. But to raise your Zoom hand, go to the participants button right here on your menu bar, located at the bottom of your Zoom window in your meeting toolbar. You may need to wave your mouse over the Zoom screen to get the toolbar to show up. Or if you're on a phone, you may need to tap on your Zoom screen. When you click on the participants button, a window will pop up that allows you to see who's currently in the meeting. Now it looks something like this. And if you're on a computer, in the bottom left-hand corner of the participants window, you'll see the option to raise your Zoom hand right here. If you're on a mobile device, tap on your own name and you'll get a menu that lets you raise your hand. I'll stop screen sharing now so you can raise your Zoom hands. And I'm going to paste these instructions into the chat box so that you have them handy. Thank you, everybody. And if you would like to share, please raise your Zoom hand and we will call on you in the order in which you raised it.
Hey, great. Thank you, Dominic. I already see some hands going. So we have Professor Jonathan Paul de Verville. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
yes, de Verville.
Great.
Thank you very, very much. This is a great planetary time that we need to rest, sleep, dream, and pray. And I think there will be some new revelations coming in all of this to continue the thread of love and the sense of love for all of us. And I am asking myself at the same time, what would Edgar do with all of this? So thank you for the meditation.
Yes, thank you so much. The thread of love.
Yeah, and how this proceeds forward, because our spaces are closed down. We are restricted in our spaces, but now time is opening up to us. There's a whole new sense of time and timing and timings. And so we have a rhythm. I mean, it's going to be spread out, and we perhaps need to pay more attention again with moon time. I think there might be something with that in terms of our relationship with the noetics. And this is a conscious noesis. It's not only consciousness, but a conscious noesis that brings us into a soul and soul love. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Jonathan. And I'm going to go to Maxine Hamilton Stubber. You are unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much, and hi everybody. And it's wonderful to connect with this group. The first time for me, so thank you. I just wanted to say that I had such a wonderful group, and one Astro Lab, we were talking about various circumstances in which we're being confronted with right now, with people dealing with all the different fears that this brings up, and the reminder to walk the walk, to see that light and the love that they essentially are, that we all are, and to be able to respond in a way that's congruent with that deeper connection, and to be always working with that, rather than all the different things that I think naturally come up for us being triggered as a human. So I just wanted to say how grateful I was for that reminder, and how valuable that is. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Maxine. And Emily Greenberg, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. I think what we talked about most in our group, and it was really lovely, was just there's so many silver linings, the synchronicities, like Claire mentioned in the beginning. And that's all I've been really trying to focus on, especially the last couple of days. I feel like we're all kind of getting into a new rhythm right now, even though it's temporary. We don't know how long it's going to last. So this kind of temporary new rhythm that we all kind of need to find, and it's going to be different for every single person. But I just keep seeing so many positive things, or reading about positive things, hearing about positive things, listening to a lot of podcasts that are just so relevant, and choosing which path I want to focus on and not get burdened and bogged down by fear. But I mean, that's what we talked about, silver linings. I feel like there are many.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for sharing for you and your group. And we do have time for a few more, so I'll go to Susan Hubbard. Go ahead, Susan, you're unmuted.
Thank you. We talked in our group about how things become it's more clear if it's your instinct. It's a little more clear than what you would normally think.
Oops.
Trust insights and act decisively. Thank you.
We lost your audio for just a second. Will you say the last little piece?
Oh,
trust your insights.
Trust insights and act decisively.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Susan. Great, we'll take one last comment, and please read the comments that are coming in. So there's some great connections coming into the chat as well. So Melinda Rain, you are unmuted. Go ahead, Melinda.
Yeah, I misspelled my last name. It's Rand, but last names are irrelevant at this point. I think that what is coming through for me, because in New Mexico, we have been on quarantine for over a week, a state of 2 million people. And we're being really careful not to overrun the planet. And we've only had one major hospitalization. So it's a very mindful way of living in New Mexico right now, which is wonderful. What's real apparent to me at this point is there's so many ways to view this in framing it in the opportunity, the insight, all of what's happening. I saw something today by the Kabbalists. I've seen things from all different places. So I'm going to make a request to those of you who are present from IONS. I'm part of the short group on conscious aging, and I really appreciate this one. And I'm wondering if there's some way that we can be able to create an online community that is just there to support each other with conversation and understanding, with the balance of science and intuitive world. And you're the perfect people to do it because you're not woo-woo. Everything you do has a basis. And so living in my little house with myself and my two birdies, I would love to have just people who I can chat with and talk with and hear your visions and ideas and perspectives, because that only helps me to grow and expand my vision and my universe and my understanding and my insight and my gratitude and my love.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And we do have a few virtual community groups, and we also do meet once a month in the free online format like this. So we'll make sure to send that out because, yeah, we want all the ways for us to connect as a community, especially now. So thank you, Melinda, for that. And wonderful. So we have, we're just about at the end of our time. And before we go, I'd love to pass it back to our CEO, Claire LaChance, for just some concluding thoughts.
Sure. Wow, thank you. Thanks everybody for being such active parts of this conversation. And I think Melinda's wrap up, the last question and comment coming from Melinda was just a perfect segue to say that what I really want to convey is let's just even increase our interaction as community during this time and beyond. I think it was Emily's comment that was, this new rhythm that we're in. And so this making lemonade out of lemons, there's so much more we can do at IONS. And this for me is just, I'm even thinking, wait, can there be an online convening that's simple like this? Once a week. I saw Melinda's little bit of reaction at not just once a month, but can we possibly do something and have an IONS, not all of us at the same time. But this is the mode that we're in at IONS right now. Our science team is, like I was saying, they've got their hand, they're doing, their work doesn't stop. Our program team and what you're seeing here with Andrea, Kirsten, Dominic, Carrie, we're pivoting to be as relevant and helpful as possible right now. And so thank you for these ideas. I'm just holding so much gratitude. I am, to use words, I'm going to end with, before I bring on Azim. Azim wanted to say a few closing comments too. Our board chair, Claudia, had to get off at noon our time Pacific, but I really want to say those islands of coherence. Small islands of coherence. We've just created an island this morning of coherence. And there's so much more we can do with this. I'm energized and inspired by this, and I'm looking forward to being with you a whole lot more. And just be well, okay? Take good care during this time on all levels, and please join us for our convenings. Your engagement is a form of support, and we're looking to just continue to buoy our work and take us to the next level. I did want to allow Azim just to make a couple comments. So Azim, you want to offer a closing?
Sure. I want to say thank you for the technology, because without this technology, isolation would be much harder. So let's say a little prayer for all that are supporting the technology. My heart definitely is a lot lighter than it was before we started. I hope that is true for everyone. And I feel that this was definitely an oasis in our isolation to be together. And thank you for all being there. As I said earlier, that the IONS family is very much foundational for me. And that thank you, Claire, for continuing to serve our IONS community. And I think it's about service. So stay in service. Service is where we find joy. So I'm very proud and honored to be part of this amazing family. And to continue working on your strengthening your immune system, strengthening your spiritual resiliency, and staying hopeful. Very important to stay hopeful and to look forward. Better times are going to be here, and we will experience bluer skies when this is all over. So thank you very much. Love you all, and all the very best.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And we will be sending out, we'll be hosting special gatherings each Friday for a short period of time with our Connections Live, which is usually only available to our members. We're opening it up free to everyone now. So I just wanted to mention that. We'll be sending out in this follow-up email. So continue to join us. We're going to continue to gather together in community and to hear from different Noetic thinkers. So please join us, and thank you again for joining in. We will see y'all next time.